Hello and welcome to another episode of IT Pro TV. I'm your host Mike Roderick, and with me today is Sean Oriano. How are you, Sean?
I'm doing pretty good. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Getting ready to do another episode here at IT Pro TV. We're continuing on with our Kali Linux series, and in this episode in particular, we're also continuing on because we've got more to do when it comes to website recon. We took a look at a couple of tools already, wget and LBD, my load balance detector. What else we did? The harvester was a cool one. But we're not going to stop there. We got even more tools we can use, again, to gather information. We're still in that recon phase, and we're using the company's website as our target, really, of that information gathering process. So, Sean, what's next on our list of tools we can use?
Well, we've got two left that we want to take a look at and spend some time with. One is MetaGoofle, and the other one is the URL crazy. I don't know if you can say that a different way. URL crazy or URL and then crazy.
Yeah, I like it.
I don't know.
Nice play on words there.
Yeah, you choose the one that you like. So those two both are. One of them is kind of interesting in the way what it does and offers to you. The other one is really cool, and I know you really like it. So let's just go ahead and talk about these two to see what they do. The first one I'm going to go ahead and bring up here on my screen is that URL crazy utility. What you can do with this is a way of helping you find different spellings of domain names. So if there's different little things going on, you can use this. And so what I have here, I've typed out the command name. The -K specifies a keyboard layout. This is one of those utilities that you can tell it what keyboard name you can put out if you live in a different region or something. So I just put the Dvorak. It's a different format of keyboard. The -R, after the -R, I'm going to tell it what it's going to resolve to. So that would be your website that you want to take a look at. So you could type in, if I type in, Microsoft.com, and let's see what the results are. Goes ahead and just boom, and shoots a lot of stuff out there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and scroll up on this guy. So what did it find? 130 host names. Wow, that's a lot more than we expected, right?
Absolutely.
130. So that's just the top level stuff. The Microsoft dot. That's not subdomains underneath that. So what we have here is we take a look at. We have the first number of them on there. It says character omission, and indeed, if you look over at all those domain names in there, people have intentionally registered those domain names in such a way that they are close but not the exact. And you think of what's going to happen. This is something that could be used to detect domain squatting and redirections, stuff that you might not necessarily immediately think that you want to do or look for as a pen tester, but you really should, because this is something that could cause the company problems, your client problems, if people happen to mistype and go to a site that looks familiar, but it's not their site. They may not notice that they've mistyped something. So they mistype something, they go to a site that looks the same, and they start providing information to it. Now they get identity theft, and who are they going to blame? They're going to blame the company, and it's going to take a long time before it's all straightened out, and it's just not going to look bad, or it's not going to look great. So you want to be aware of these types of things. Heck, in some cases, you can actually take legal action against this. And I'm not a lawyer, but I do know there's ways to pursue some of these things, as it has been done.
I thought you were going to say I played one on TV.
I played one on TV.
I knew that was coming. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is a serious problem, right? People they know the common typos that people make, and so they'll try to set up a website and do those phishing scams, or worse, it's just something that, as you said, is slanderous towards the actual company, or is just something that doesn't line up with the morals of your company, if you know what I mean. Things like that you don't want people going to accidentally. So maybe there's some kind of legal recourse, but first you got to find them. You got to know they exist. Great tool. I tried it without the keyboard option, pulled up all kinds of information. I was going to try it with QWERTY as well to see what that does for me.
Yeah, you can do different variations of this. You can have a lot of fun with this, just looking at different different domain names. You can find that there's probably stuff out there. Been a lot of cases where you find stuff that has been registered you're unaware of. If any of you watching this or here in the chat room, you work for a larger company or work for a company that's become more got a higher profile, it becomes more and more likely that this type of shenanigans is happening. So you see stuff like omissions in here. You see character repeats in there that people have intentionally doubled up on a letter. Character swap. So all the letters are there, but they're flipped around, replacing characters. I mean, if you look at your keyboard, these character replacements, some of these things are just, you look at, one's got, what is it, I saw it in there, was Microsoft. And if you looked at it, the U and the I are right next to one another. Someone's thought that out, saying someone's could have fat fingers or whatever they call it, and slip over and type that one. Then we have, other characters being put in to it. So you've got a lot of stuff, missing dots in here, just a lot of different things. So you can keep going through and looking at that, and I'm sure a lot of you are running this. And then you get at the end, you see the homoglyphs. Someone's put in instead of putting the normal character, they've replaced it with something that looks the same. So you can see that you have with Microsoft on there, the top one of those. What's someone done? They've taken the O's out and put zeros in there. So it looks the same, but someone and if you look on the keyboard, there's the O and 0 are right next to one another. But someone may not be counting that you mistype that. They might be putting that in a URL in an email or something.
Right.
And someone's like, oh, it looks close. Click, and they don't pick that up. And then you see at the bottom the wrong top-level domain name. Well, what have they done? Someone's registered Microsoft and some of these other TLDs out there, for different countries. Hoping that someone will type it in. You see Microsoft.ru. That's for Russia. You see some of these other ones, Microsoft.edu. For educational stuff. Someone's gone through and registered that. Right. So it's a lot of little things, clever otherwise, that people have done to capture traffic that was intended for Microsoft. And so it's not an uncommon thing for people either to mistype it or to click on a URL and just see the URL and click on it really quick and assume that that's right, and without really going, hey, that's not an O, that's a 0. So just that's what that would be used for. A good way of helping you locate these things and potentially see if you need to do anything about it.
Yeah, that's a fantastic little tool and very easy to use. I limited mine because I use a QWERTY keyboard, so switch it over to QWERTY and there you go. You get all the, or you can leave that keyboard option out and you can get all the different options no matter where your keys are laid out. So really, really cool and easy to use.
Yep, there you go. I mean, and just to think of where this would come in from another angle is not only protecting the company's identity, it's also protecting a company's intellectual property and all that too. Intellectual property is a trademark, and so and a copyright, all that type of stuff. So if you've got something here like if you're Microsoft and someone's got something that looks pretty close to you or is trying to mislead somebody, you could have a legal case there because there could be some confusion being called or come in to play. And I know there was one that happened. And you could make a case either way, and we're not here to start big arguments with this. But they had there was an individual lived in Washington State. Microsoft's there, he's there, and he was a high school student, and he started a company that made software. He only made like one software product at the time that Microsoft jumped in and says you better knock it off. So he made this one software product. And he called his company Microsoft, but he called it, his name was Mike and his last name was Rowe. And so he just added soft on the end. He goes, that's my name. And they're like, yeah, maybe your name, but you can't call it that because it's you can say you're Microsoft and people are going to know what you're trying to cause confusion with.
Yeah.
So he probably could have done that for a school project or something, but as soon as he made profits off of it, yeah, they jumped on him really quickly. and I guarantee you, Microsoft probably got it, probably knew what the joke was too. They're probably like, yeah, we understand, but they are compelled to either take legal action or lose control of that trademark. And that's what people don't understand, is that these companies have to do that, and so you may be required to help them with that sort of thing by finding stuff like this. I know what Disney World had that here. They had, I remember hearing about some nursery that had Disney characters in the walls, and Disney's lawyers came in and were like, we're going to sue you and everything else. And people are like, man, the mouse has gone rabid. And they're like, no, they have to do it. That's their intellectual property. They had to go through and do it. They had no choice, so.
Yeah, you let one person get away with it, and pretty soon you lose control of it, and that's not going to be a good thing for any business.
Yeah, and so they had to take action. It made them look bad for a while. People still remember that. Right. I do remember they said, Hanna-Barbera or something jumped in and says, well, we'll let you use our characters for free. Disney should have done that. I don't know why the mouse didn't think of that one, but whatever.
All right, and then this, the one we've been waiting to see, Metagoofil. I know this is one of your faves.
Yeah, Metagoofil. I've got that sitting right over here and queued up and ready to go. What I did to make this easy is I have the URL already typed out, so I have that at the bottom. What the command line has going on there is I see the Metagoofil command, -D, that's the domain again. Then you go -T, that's telling me what type of files it's looking for. You could actually go say PDF, doc, this, that. You could go that. Next thing is to limit the results. Then you can see how far other information on how far it's going to go down. At the end, I'm kind of drawing a blank right now. The output is going to go to that Kaylee PDF folder, and the file is going to be the Kaylee files.html. So you've got all those things being spelled out there. So that's our command line. Let's take a look at what this does. In fact, let me shorten this up just a bit, so to make it a little simple, I'll just call it Kaylee. You can name it whatever you want. I'm just gonna shorten it down just a bit. So I've got that command line for Metagoofil. I am gonna go ahead and hit enter on that, and it's gonna do its thing. And do not be surprised if this thing pukes out some errors on it. It happens. So it's going through and it's taking a look and see what it's doing. It says 100 results, 25 files. So that N25 told you how many files it's going to download to my system. What this is going to do is this is actually going to look at those files, and it's looking for bringing them down local, and it's going to look for them for metadata. Okay, so it's slowly going through this, as it does its job. Depending on the parameters you've set and told it how many files to download and how far down to drill, this could take a while. So you can see, we've got a pretty good connection here, and this is taking some time. Well, while that's running, I have already taken the liberty. I ran this before. And so I have my browser up. It will actually generate HTML file. Remember, there was something there called Kaylee.html. I stuck at the end. That's the output file. So what we're seeing here is this is the output file. So it's saying here's what it found. So it's saying, okay, well, here's what I've got. I see a little graph up top. You can see it found some usernames, found one username, some software, some email information. That's interesting. So when I look down here, software versions found. Well, it found looks like it found a couple versions of PDFs in there. It looks like that's what I identified. It's probably the same version. It's probably that some of the documents that it tried to extract that data off. Some of them didn't have the version number on it. Some of them did. So it just said 2 different versions. Okay, so I'm fine with that. Email addresses. So it was able to look at those files and able to pull stuff that either is an email address or resembles an email address. So we're seeing that right there in this report, and it said it found a bunch of them, and some of these things, they're not necessarily. I mean, you kind of got to mix in some of your own intelligence and common sense into this, because those may not be email addresses. Some of those things I look at, and you would look at too and go, yeah, there's something missing. Right. But they might be something. They might be something else. I wouldn't just chuck it out. Some of those things could be, usernames and passwords or stuff like that for use later on. So files that are analyzed, there you go. So it pulled all those down. Metadata that it was able to pull. So it's downloading those files in the background. I'm running this came off the exact same query that I'm running, in that window that I showed you. So what I see here is I see the attributes that it was able to extract off these things, and so it found out who made it. Well, offensive security wrote these things, and offensive security, of course, are the people that are responsible for Kaylee. So it makes kind of sense that these are in different. These are probably, I think these are instruction manuals in different languages. Yeah. Hence the dash, a 2-character thing at the end. So we're seeing all of these things. It's not necessarily going to pull them off of every last one. Sometimes the formatting in the document may be a little off or something, but usually it's pretty successful at it. It will extract this metadata off of it and tell us what it finds. So there you go. We're just going through and we're seeing a lot of stuff from offensive security and different versions of it and different addresses attached to it. And then you see down here it found that some of the stuff it wasn't able to do it. It failed for some reason, which, okay, not necessarily a deal breaker. I've got three cases where something just didn't go through correctly, but you've already got some good information.
Right.
So what MetaGoofle is designed to do is it's designed when you put that whole command together. It's going to, and you can see this one's it has finished. What this one's going to do at the end of the day. So there you go. There's all the stuff that that went on behind the scenes. So we see all these things happening. At the end of the day, you've got some good information you pull out of that metadata. You will have to the format of using this tool is actually pretty easy. The biggest problem for you is going to be determining how many files you really want to grab, because if you don't know how much you're going to grab and you go crazy with it, you could be sitting there for a while downloading file after file after file, because they're going to bring those things local and analyze them there on your system. So it's gonna be doing some stuff, and then not only knowing what types of files you're looking for, but other types that might be useful. I could change that PDF or add to that PDF rather, and say a DOC or docx file. Those ones it will also read the attributes off of if they're there. And then there's one other little detail to note is notice how it said the person that wrote it was offensive security. That's not a user. We know that. We know there's not a user with the name offensive security, or not a person at least with the name offensive security. The software is probably registered to them that created the PDF in the first place. So someone wrote the document, gave it to you went through the copy editing process and all that, and it was given to somebody to do the final review on and shove it in a PDF and post it up there, and that was it.
Some people are better at sanitizing their documents before they post them up there. A lot of our processing programs can allow you to go through and remove personal information, but a lot of people don't, and they throw that stuff out there, and it might depend on who their program is registered to. Like if my Office suite is registered to me, then it probably puts my name somewhere in that metadata, and MetaGoofle is going to be able to grab that stuff. So another one of those programs too, Sean, that seems like then better to start off with a small number and kind of get a sampling of seeing what you're going to get. Yep. Without, don't start off with 1,000 or something like that.
Yeah, it's a game of numbers here. You gotta start off being patient and start with low numbers and work your way up. You may have a couple hundred PDFs, let's say, on that site. There could be way more PDFs up there than this, but I may only need 10, 20, 30 to give me enough of a pattern to move further on with my pen testing process. I don't care about whatever else is up there. It's just not useful. But then again, there may be cases where you do need that information. Right. And you're right. People do not remove this. lot of cases they don't know it's there, and the ones that do know it's there. There's only a small number of those that actually take the next step of removing it.
Right.
I mean, we have they still have that issue in Microsoft's Office suite, that they still leave attributes behind in there, and there's utility that you can get that actually strips those things out. And there was a big stink about that, and Microsoft fixed some of it, but a lot of those attributes are still there, and people don't remove them. They don't know that those things are there, so they just, go ahead and set it out. There's nothing that can be done with it. Well, this will find it, and the files that this one finds don't necessarily have to be linked any place. You just point to a domain, it will go right through it.
Again, people putting stuff on their web server that maybe was linked at one point and is no longer linked, or just put it up there so they might be able to access it, but don't think anybody else can access it because it's not an actual link. You'd have to type in the URL to be able to get to it, so they think, nobody can get to it. Well, something like this, it's going to find it because it's searching those directories, and if it's there, it'll find it.
Yeah, and it's worth to kind of put a little extra bit on that. Be aware that we haven't seen it yet. It hasn't made its appearance yet, but it will. There's a tool that will show up in here later on in our discussions that can actually find or read the robots.txt that you have in websites. And that robots.txt, if you're unaware, it tells search engines where they can go on a site and where they can't. So what this one will do is this one can go into that robot.txt and look at it to see where you don't want search engines to go. And it will say, okay, yeah, I know where all these folders you don't want me to take a look at because they're off the map. You don't want me playing around in. I'll just go right on into those now because I know where they are.
Yeah, I mean, I'm picturing the old Warner Brothers cartoon, where you got Bugsy and there's a big old neon sign outside. This is the bad guy's hideout. You're basically saying, I don't want search engines to look here, but to the bad guy, it's like, this is where I want to look for all the good stuff.
Yeah,
right.
and with that file specifically, there's still a lot of people. I'm surprised because that robots.txt is not a new thing.
Right.
It's been around for ages. There's still people that don't know about it. There's still people when you teach them how to do this intelligence gathering we're doing here, they immediately are asking and should be asking, how do you stop that? And tell them, oh, we'll add that to your robots.txt. And they're like, what's that? They just never been told about that one, and it's not something I'm trying to ding them on or anything. It's just the fact that that is still one of those things that's not common knowledge, and it's easy money to stop a lot of this. But in this case, the defensive measure that someone's put up to stop people from going into those, stop certain tools like we have here from going into those. We've got another tool that will go specifically after that and see where you don't want me to go, and then I'll go there anyway. So there's always a way to get around it, but what can we say?
All right, I'll tell you what, Sean, a lot of great information there on, Recon, right? Web server Recon in this case, hitting that public interface of the company and trying to see what kind of information I can glean using these different tools. We looked at, in a previous episode, wget and LBD and the Harvester. In this episode, we look at MetaGoofill and URL Crazy. So just a lot of tools. And of course, as we've said several times, there's more in there if you want to take a look at them. These are just kind of those the go-to tools for Sean here. So anything else we want to throw in our website, Recon, before we call this a day?
I can't think of any. Of course, every time I hear the word Harvester, that tool, I always want to do the flex like the Hulkster. Harvester!
It makes me think of an old Metallica song. I don't know. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we hope you enjoyed watching this episode. Signing off for IT Pro TV, I'm Mike Roderick.
And I'm Sean Ariano.
And we'll see you next time.